I did it again. I didn't hit the record button. This buck right here. Oh, my heart's rushing. That buck come in, about 70 yards away. I hit the grunt, gave him a couple footsteps, real light. He continued to walk to my left. Stopped one more time. I gave him a few more footsteps, no grunt this time. He turned and come right up to me. I hit him once, he dropped. I hit him again, that was it, he was done. I thought I had it on. I didn't. But I just killed my first buck using my call system, whether I got it on video or not. It doesn't matter to me. I'm so pumped right now. I did it. The complete deer calling system. Yes, yes, yes. I'm getting down. I'm checking my buck out. First buck on my own call system. Woo! This is my first buck using my new call system. Unfortunately, with the excitement, it's very hard to film, call, film, and make the shot. I mean, it's very difficult, and this is the second time. I called a really nice 8-point in Tuesday morning, and woofed on the shot. But not only did I woof on the shot, I missed the buck. I missed the footage. I forgot. To my left, I heard footsteps coming. I seen this nice high rack. Thought I hit the power button. Looked down again. Thought I hit the record button. I guess I didn't. But what had happened was he come in to my left. I threw out a grunt, one short grunt, like this, and a couple footsteps. Just real light. He stopped. He stood there for a couple seconds. And he continued walking like he was going away from me. He stopped one more time. The second time I didn't give him a grunt. I just gave him some steps. Real light. 4 or 5. That was all it took. He turned and come walking right up through here. This is, well, he dropped over there, but I moved him out so I could film. We're only 12, 15 yards from the stand, but I just want to take this opportunity to explain how I come up with this concept. Quite some time ago, I would approach my stand, say 200 yards away, on a calm night. I mean morning when it's still night out, dark out. Toe heel, toe heel, toe heel. And a lot of times before it was even daylight out, I could hear deer coming through. Because they thought they heard another deer, and in afternoon hunts, same thing. Toe heel, toe heel, toe heel, pausing, that stop and go, and I can't tell you how many times deer were coming in. Sometimes I was halfway up my tree, sometimes I wasn't even close enough to my stand to get in it, and deer already moving. So I said, there's something more going on here than what I'm seeing, and it's just not coincidence. So I started paying attention to deer movement, and on a quiet day, if you watch them, if you really pay attention to what's going on, they spread out. Why? It's because they can locate one on each other through their footsteps. They don't have to constantly be fixed on them with their eyes. They can hear each other, that social stop and go, as they move through the woods. Now, on a rainy day or a snowy day, they're bunched together because they've lost that sense of communication. It's not, it's not as strong, so they'll move tight together. A lot of times on a windy, rainy day, the deer will move to a field, abandoned field, or a field somewhere, because they can't hear. So that's why I come up with the concept. So really paying attention to what's going on, I knew that this would be a call that would work. Just coming up with the right materials to put something together. Why it works? One is it's a form of communication. I can prove it through, situations as hunters. I guarantee you've seen. Say you have 3 does coming into your area where your stand is. All right, it's that social stop and go as they feed, and all of a sudden one stops. Her head's fixed in a certain direction. Well, if one doe stops, one deer, it raises attention. If she does it long enough, it raises attention to the other 2. Why? Because they can't hear her moving. That's social stop and go. So they figure, all right, what's going on? What's wrong? So they pick their heads up. Now they're all looking in a certain direction. Well, all of a sudden, here comes 3 more deer. That doe stopped. She heard them approaching that area. She didn't run. She knew exactly what was coming in. So right there is another form of communication. One is to stop. They stayed still for a long period of time. It raised the suspicion to the other ones. 2, other deer were approaching and they knew it. Turkey and whitetails, they don't just always move through the woods together. One's always there before the other and vice versa. They know what's coming. They know the sound of other deer. They know the sound of turkey, bear, coyotes, and hunters, without a doubt in my mind. So one is a form of communication. I'll argue that till I'm blue in the face. 2, they're curious. They want to see what other deer's out there. 3, I call it the rite of passage. If a deer's used to being in an area, they're familiar with that area, buck or doe, and they hear deer moving in that area already, it's a rite of passage. It means, all right, there's already deer in there. It's safe to approach this area. They feel, safer in numbers. 4, which is probably one of the biggest reasons, especially during the rut. Grunt calls used to be so effective back in the 80s and even into the early 90s, but they've lost their effectiveness. You got to remember that 90% of the market out there are guys that work all the time. We don't have, I watch grunt calls. It seems like every time on TV, the Outdoor Channel, every time that guys hit a grunt, that buck turns and comes. Maybe it's just, I don't know how many hours they spend in the woods, but there it probably does work, and it's still effective there for them. But out here, everybody has a grunt call. Pennsylvania has the most bow hunters in the country. Everybody has a grunt call, and it's like now you hit that grunt, he's like, you get that buck to stop and turn. Doesn't mean he's coming, because he's listening. Why isn't that buck moving? He's waiting to hear more of the story. So now, this is probably the biggest reason why this works is wildlife biologists, you guys already know this, a grunt call is an animal-to-animal call. The rack rubbing a tree, animal-to-environment call. The hoof hitting the ground, animal-to-environment call. So now you're combining them, animal-to-animal and animal-to-environment. It sounds so authentic to that buck when his guard's down. He's looking for anything convincing enough to come into. Right here's proof. I can't put the emphasis on how authentic it sounds to them. So that's probably the biggest reason is you're combining the 2 calls. Not only are you're just not doing this in the woods anymore. It's so it's a form of communication, curiosity, rite of passage. The combination, it authenticates it. 2 different calls, animal to animal, animal to environment. It's a radical new concept. It is effective. And you can change grunt calls. I don't care if it's a rubber that flexes or if it's a long tube or a big fat tube. It's still a grunt call, and it's still by itself. This is going to be the newest form newest calls, the hottest call out there. I mean, I went out and did demonstration, and 4 experienced hunters in local bow shops after I had the provisional patent filed, and they embraced the concept. They said, "You're absolutely right. Why haven't anybody thought of this in the past?" So, this is it. I can't tell you how proud I am. Big guy in the sky. That's another reason why I did this up here, because there's 15,000 acres of woods here. There are no food plots. There's no corn. There's no soybean. There's no alfalfa. I think this is probably the toughest bow hunting that you can go out and prove that if it works here, it'll be phenomenal. So I'm Valentine Turkowitz. This is the Complete Deer Calling System.